Joan
Yeah, it
Jones
is.
reporting in the news that we are close to an agreement with China. I did, by the way, find that audio. This is Scott Bessent, and this is what he says on CNBC.
We met for 2 full days in Stockholm. The Chinese are tough negotiators. We're tough, too. It was led by the vice premier, my counterpart, Hu Feng, who I have great respect for. He is both a statesman, a tough negotiator, and very senior in the leadership. We pushed back on them quite a bit and made our positions known. I believe that we have the makings of a deal. They announced that we would have a 90-day roll, which was a bit premature. Ambassador Greer and myself will be speaking to President Trump today about whether we will be doing the roll by the August 12th deadline. There's still a few technical details to be worked out on the Chinese side. Between us, I'm confident that it will be done, but it's not 100% done.
Well, that is most certainly good news. Senator Marsha Blackburn is joining us on the Newsmaker Hotline. Senator, earlier this morning, we had an announcement about South Korea, a deal there. This follows the EU and Japan. It seems to me like as far as all of this tariff business goes, Donald Trump seems to be plowing right through these agreements.
Well, indeed, he is plowing through these. There are others that are in the works. Several of these have gotten close to the finish line, and we knew that China was at the table talking with Secretary Bessent. I spoke with Secretary Bessent last week at the White House, and he mentioned that there were conversations, and then, of course, they sent a delegation. China sent a delegation to Stockholm to meet with the secretary and to work through different provisions with the secretary and Ambassador Greer. And now we find out the framework is done and it is ready to go to the president. This is good news. Bear in mind, for the first time in over 3 decades, the U.S. government had a budget surplus at the end of June, and it was because of the tariffs, also because of the tariff policy that President Trump enacted. People are coming to the table. We are reaching deals. You look at the significance of the EU deal for the Tennessee ag community and the new markets that are being opened there, and opportunities for our farmers, our producers, opportunities for markets to be open to U.S.-made autos, auto parts, the amount of direct foreign investment that is going to be able to go into the U.S. And indeed, we see the president is achieving his goal of making America prosperous and productive and bringing jobs back to the USA and taking pride in that Made in America, Produced in America label.
Senator, moving on to the Epstein, of course, you've been in the forefront of this discussion for years. Yesterday, Chuck Schumer wants to invoke this rule of 5, which basically means that if 5 members of the Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs requests information from any federal agency, that agency, they say, is legally required to provide it. And so they are trying now what seems to me to be like, I don't know what you would call this, but sort of legislative tricks to embarrass the Republicans. The Republicans have said, we want this information released responsibly. Any comment on Chuck Schumer and what he did yesterday?
Well, what we have to bear in mind, Dan, is that the Democrats lost November 5th. They've lost at the ballot box. They are losing in the House and the Senate. They are losing in the courts. So now they feel like they've got obstruction and resistance. And you've got members, U.S. House, that there's one member that is holding resistance labs on how to resist. And resistance and obstruction is something that we're seeing play out. You know, you can look at it in nominations. We're seeing it there. President Trump is the only president who has not had a nominee confirmed by a voice vote. We are going through the legislative process of calling cloture, filing cloture, calling cloture, and then waiting 2 hours and having a vote on each and every nominee, every civilian nominee. This is something that has never happened. And we have had more votes than any Congress that we've ever seen. We've had 457 votes, and we have worked 733 hours in session since we came in January, and we're doing it, and we're going to be here all of August. August plans can center around being here and voting to confirm President Trump's nominees because the Democrats are not doing anything to help get these through. And when you look at the stats on this obstruction that they are doing to try to slow progress down. Now, we're continuing. We start early and we work late every single day, and we've gotten 115 of President Trump's nominees through. And on top of that, we've gotten a lot of other good things done. The big, beautiful bill, the rescission package that is out there, some of the provisions that we have passed on funding, and some of the provisions we passed that are removing excess spending. All of these things we're continuing to do. But this resist, obstruct is what they're planning to do. And, you know, I think that what they're finding out is the more they talk, the less the American people want to hear from them.
One of the things that has, of course, been spoken about is, you've got Congress, the House, the Senate off for August. And so now you have the president trying to do these recess appointments, but he's not able to do that. Do you want to go back to Washington, D.C. and get all of this done? I'm assuming you do.
Well, I'm saying we shouldn't leave.
Yeah.
That the Senate is in session now.
Okay.
And we worked until about 11 o'clock last night. And there are many of us who have said, well, let's just stay.
Yep.
And let's not go home until we get this done or until the Democrats agree to do some of these nominees by voice vote. We have 55 of the 150 nominees who came out of committee on strong bipartisan votes. Those 55 should be able to go by voice on the floor. And so far, the Democrats have not allowed that. So that's what we're saying. Let's stay here and let's get caught up, because if you're having to have a 30-hour cloture, which is what you have to have on cabinet secretaries and appellate judges, then let's get caught up so then we can start that 30-hour clock. So we are working on it. Some of us met and talked with some of the Democrats last night, and I think some of them would like to be home for August. We would love to be home talking about the wins that we have had for the American people and what a fantastic 6 months we've had. The border is secure. We are going back to building the wall. You have crime, violent crime numbers coming down across the country. We have passed no tax on tips and overtime. Tennesseans are going to see a $2,600 tax savings this year, and you have no tax on Social Security because we have the bonus deduction of $6,000 per senior per year on their income tax. And by the way, that was my provision Another of my provisions has been signed into law, and that is a tax credit for employers for employer-provided child care. And this is for small and large businesses. And if an employer provides child care for their employees, then they get that credit. So we've gotten a lot of those good things done. The tariffs are working. We are seeing bilateral trade deals, which, remember, that is what President Trump wanted in the first administration. So, yes, things are getting done, and it is a positive, and what we want to do is see that continue.
Let me ask you, Senator, and I've got to play a piece of audio just so folks can reference this woman, Becky Pringle. This is related to something that you're doing, which I actually love. This is the National Education Association leader of the teachers union nationwide, Becky Pringle.
No cold can touch your heart. No deluge can dampen your purpose. NEA, you are those stars in the darkness. Your light will not be dimmed. Right. Your purpose will drive you in a righteous fight for freedom because you know who you are.
Yes, she's crazy. And the reason I play that, Senator, is because we always reference her because I think she's insane. She is the leader for the National Education Association, massive teachers union nationwide. Now, you have legislation to keep their influence out of Congress.
Yes, indeed, I do. I've actually got two pieces that are working. And Dan, you know, there are some things that happen like this NEA convention they had this summer where you thought they have lost their ever-loving mind. And I started looking, I had my team work on how they are chartered and what they do with all this money that they make. Because I have a lot of friends who are classroom teachers, and they say, well, we only joined the NEA because of benefits and retirement and insurance and different things. And so we found out they actually have a federal charter that comes through Congress. And I said, well, let's remove that. And Congressman Richardson from over in North Carolina has this provision in the House. We will strip that federally granted charter. Now, if they want to go off and be a 501c3 and work separately, you know, they're welcome to do that. I have a second piece of legislation that says any federally chartered union, there's only one, cannot lobby the U.S. House and Senate. And it would prohibit them from actually lobbying the U.S. House and Senate. And, of course, as we know, Secretary Linda McMahon is doing a stellar job closing down the U.S. Department of Education. I mean, she's already removed half the employees over there, and they are they're hard at work closing that down, sending that money, that authority back to the states. It is going to be your state general assembly and your state school board working with your local school board that will be making the determinations on education policy, and this gives parents more rights and more say.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. I know you've got a lot going on. Senator Marsha Blackburn, always great to have you on. Have a great rest of week and weekend. It is 7:21 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Joan?
Yes.
I thought playing Becky Pringle in the middle of that interview with the senator was a good call.
I love that.
I wasn't quite sure, though.
Uh-huh.
But she did play into it a little bit and said they've lost their ever-loving minds because she is insane.
Yes. When I heard that, like, I wasn't paying attention closely until I started hearing the crazy. And the crazy really drew me in.
Do you know what's insane? Is that people actually like applaud when she's doing that.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. Like, and the sound bites are abundant of Becky Pringle, the head of the NEA. A big, powerful teachers union.
Want to know what it reminded me of?
So I don't know what that is. What is that?
Lord of the Rings.
Oh, my bad.
You shall not pass.
Yeah, which, I mean, I don't understand what they're thinking because they have reelected Becky Pringle to lead their union, even though she has these kind of weird moments.
Yeah. Probably when you're in the moment, like sitting in with a crowd of other people and everybody's clapping and you're caught up in the moment.
I'd be embarrassed.
Yeah,
Like, woman, man, have some...
It's a Howard Dean moment.
Yeah, but she does it like the Howard Dean moment. He wasn't somebody who did that all the time.
Right.
She does this.
No cold can touch your heart.
The waving
No
voice.
deluge can dampen your purpose. And yea, you are those stars in the darkness.
I think it's so funny.
Wow. Somebody should check her pulse, make sure that she's doesn't have high blood pressure.
Do you think that I'm going to get a note from like Senator Blackburn's people and say, why did you do that?
Well, they might, yeah.
Why did because I might. Now, I tried hard not to have her make a comment on Becky Pringle the way that I didn't want to box her in and try to. But she played right along.
Oh, she did.
She did. So I appreciate that. And yeah, she is crazy. Becky Pringle, not Senator.
Glad you clarified. She might not ever come on again.
It is 7:23 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. That could actually be like your alarm ringtone, Becky Pringle, just to make sure that you woke up.
Oh, man.
I can't believe what old, irrelevant, decrepit James Carville said about Melania Trump. That is coming up here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is the latest on Jeffrey Epstein. Let's get to it, shall we? The family of Virginia Giuffre has spoken out. Now, remember what Donald Trump, he said this the other day.
And people were taken out of the spa, hired by him. In other words, gone. And other people would come and complain, this guy is taking people from the spa. I didn't know that. And then when I heard about it, I told him, I said, listen, we don't want you taking our people, whether it was spa or not spa. I don't want him taking people. And he was fine. And then not too long after that, he did it again. And I said, out of here.
Mr. President, did one of those stolen, persons, that include Virginia Giuffre?
I don't know. I think she worked at the spa. I think so. I think that was one of the people, yeah. He stole her.
Yeah, and of course the media focused on those words, stolen, and he obviously meant poached or that Epstein hired away these girls. Now, remember that she was working as a locker room attendant at Mar-a-Lago. Epstein hired her away, and from there she ended up in all of that trouble dealing with and working for him, air quoting that, Jeffrey Epstein. So that made all kinds of headlines. People attacking Donald Trump again, of course, any opportunity. Her family, though, is now speaking out. Giuffre's family now says it was shocking to hear President Trump invoke our sister and say that he was aware that Virginia had been stolen from Mar-a-Lago. Please just stop. I mean, no offense, but put the whole comment in context. He's talking about how Epstein came in and hired her away. They continue on. It makes us ask if he was aware of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's criminal actions, especially given his statement 2 years later that his good friend Jeffrey likes women on the younger side, no doubt about it. They said in a statement, we and the public are asking for answers. Survivors demand this. And so the family, of course, also hitting out at Congress for considering to get Maxwell to testify about Epstein's crimes, saying if our sister could speak today, she would be most angered by the fact that the government is listening to a known perjurer, a woman who repeatedly lied under oath and will continue to do so as long as it benefits her position. The statement read, and again, that is the family of Virginia Giuffre. So now you've got all of this conversation going on with the family. People tried to make hay out of what Donald Trump said regarding her being stolen from Mar-a-Lago. But here's the deal: if they get her to testify, Ghislaine Maxwell, if they get Ghislaine Maxwell to testify, as I've been saying all along, she cannot be trusted. What really would the point be? And as I've said a bazillion times, Ghislaine Maxwell just wants out of prison. So she is due to testify. It's August 11th, and she did ask for immunity. That immunity was denied. She is serving 20 years. And I don't believe that there's any way that she will be getting a pardon, Ghislaine Maxwell. So meantime, Chuck Schumer is using legislative trickery to try and embarrass the Republicans, using what is being described as an age-old rule to try and get the DOJ to release the Epstein files. Need some audio.
Known as the Rule of Five, to compel the Department of Justice to release the full and complete Epstein files. Under federal law, when any 5 senators on the Homeland Security Committee call on the executive branch, the executive branch must comply.
I mean, part of what this is all about is trying to keep the Republicans fighting on this, really. What they're trying to do is turn up the heat, throw gasoline on the fire, Chuck Schumer and the Democrats. They want to keep this conversation, this discussion going. And the Rule of 5, basically what it is that, and I did speak about this with Marsha Blackburn, Senator, is that if 5 members of the Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs request information from any federal agency, that agency, they say, is legally required to provide it.
Our request covers all documents, files, evidence, and other materials in possession of the DOJ, the FBI, related to the case of the United States versus Jeffrey Epstein. While protecting the victims' identities can and must be of top importance, the public has a right to know who enabled, knew of, or participated in one of the most heinous sex trafficking operations in history.
So they do call this an arcane law that gives minority leaders the ability to get some oversight even when they're not in power. They say it is rarely used. And the other thing about this is it has never been tested in court, ever. So the DOJ has acknowledged receiving this letter from Chuck Schumer and the Democrats. They are declining to comment. White House also not talking. But, you know, the only way they say that this can be legally enforced via Congress is by the majority party in both chambers. So even if you have a situation where, all right, the DOJ acknowledges getting the letter, but the majority party, which, by the way, right now, you've got Republicans majority in both the House and the Senate, there's no way for them, the Democrats, to really do anything of any substance because Republicans do have that majority. And by the way, they have said they are going to release the files when they are ready, when the redactions happen and the privacy of the victims and the innocent are guaranteed. That's the whole point. We all agree. I'd be willing to bet every single person listening to me right now would agree that this information does need to be released. We would also, I would hope, we would also agree that the privacy of the victims and the innocent do need to be guaranteed. And that's what Mike Johnson, House Speaker Mike Johnson, has said over and over again. James Carville, I don't know, what word would you describe James Carville? Like what? Like, I don't know. The guy is just slimy as all get out.
Crotchety.
Crotchety is too kind of word.
Stole it. She stole it from me. That's what I was going to say.
Oh, were you?
Yes.
So I think that is too kind of a term. I think the guy is slimy as the day is long. And he said something about Melania Trump without evidence. And I believe that this jackhole is dying to get sued. Was on a podcast, and he took aim at Melania Trump.
So I'll turn it back over. I'll just make one point. To me, a key figure in this is Melania. Okay? And I think that's at the bottom of what they don't want to get out because it was all modeling agencies. Remember, Trump had a modeling agency. Then Epstein got into the modeling agency, and Jean-Luc Bernal, the guy in Paris in the model age, that hung himself. 2 out of the 3 people ended up hanging themselves. There is, I really believe this, Jack. there is a deep, dark secret somewhere underneath all this.
So he's trying to implicate Melania Trump somehow. So real quick, Jean-Luc Bernal was a French modeling agent, and Epstein and he were friends, and he was deeply involved in Epstein's quest to find girls. He would find them for Epstein, and he would also, by the way, engage in the activity. This guy was deeply, deeply depraved. And so you've got James Carville, who is saying that somehow there is a deep, dark secret regarding Melania Trump. Now, I don't know exactly what he means by that. I don't know if he is saying that is how Donald Trump and Melania met. I don't know if he's saying that Melania was somehow, I don't know, in on the whole thing or whatever it is. But there is no evidence, zero, that this had anything to do with Melania Trump. Do you know how Melania was discovered, Joan?
No, how?
She was discovered. She was at a fashion show in, I guess it was Slovenia, which is where she's from.
Mm-hmm.
She was at this fashion show with a friend. The friend was the one that was in the fashion show. Melania is just sitting there holding up a wall. And some photographer comes up to her and says, hey, you ought to be in pictures. And he, I guess, signs her on.
That's so...
The pictures? What is it, the 20s?
Right, I know.
You ought to be in the pictures, doll.
Whatever. You be quiet, Sam, or I'm going to tell people what you said James Carville looks like.
Go for it. It's an honest description.
So, basically, James Carville, it seems to me like he wants to get sued because he is somehow trying to implicate Melania in all of this. There's no evidence that she has anything to do with this as a victim or otherwise. So, I don't know. I think it's silly. All right, Sam, you want to talk about what at 7:48. So, school, I don't think it starts until tomorrow. So, I think we're safe.
No.
No?
School starts today in Trousdale and Coffee County.
Okay. So.
Just saying.
Okay, thank you, Joan. Well, go ahead, Sam. How did you describe James Carville? Joan. This is awesome. How do you describe James Carville?
He looks like a testicular lump that you should go get checked for.
Oh my gosh.
If I looked down and saw something like that, I'm calling my doctor immediately.
So CNN is reporting this story, and I don't know if you saw this, Joan. The headline is this: Trump snaps, be quiet, at CNN's Caitlin Collins when confronted about new Epstein bombshell. Now, I don't know if you've seen this video. It's actually kind of silly, but you've got Caitlin Collins, and she's like kind of yelling over some hedges at Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And he's trying to, have you seen this? He's trying to talk about whatever it was, and she keeps going back on Epstein. And by the way, and maybe the audio is out there, but I don't actually hear Donald Trump, I'm air quoting here, snapping, be quiet. I don't hear that at all. But whatever. I got here at 5 o'clock this morning, and you had CNN running with this story because, of course, it is Caitlin Collins. So I don't think this Epstein thing is going to go away anytime soon. But for me, it's like, I don't know. I want the information released. I'm over it. Eventually, I believe that it will get released. I'm going to keep covering it as a news story. Did you hear that? And I'm going to go down this road. That call. Oh, you were here, Joan. Chris Hand, who I love dearly. Mm-hmm. That guy that called up Chris's show yesterday.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I should tell Chris to rerun that call because I was so angry at this caller that I'm driving home and I'm listening because I listen to Chris when I go home.
Yeah.
I am so angry at this caller that I totally forgot I was supposed to go to the grocery store. And I'm in my driveway and I'm like, oh, crap, I forgot to go to the store. That's how agitated I was at this caller. Now, what angered me about this caller to Chris Hand's show, and I forget the dude's name, but
Jay.
What was it?
Jay.
Caller Jay. And he comes on and he purports to be a fan of Chris's. But then he proceeds to tell, I'm getting all worked up. He proceeds to tell Chris that Chris is losing his credibility because he is blindly supporting Donald Trump, which is absolute bull pucky. That is absolute BS. And I was so angry because this dude's using every psychological trick in the book. I've been hosting for years. I know exactly what this guy was trying to do to Chris. I love that Chris didn't fall for it. Chris held him accountable. And part of what this guy was trying to do was say, oh, you are blindly believing that Donald Trump had anything to do with the girls and so forth. And Chris laid out his evidence. And there is evidence, I believe that there is evidence contrary to the accusations that would be leveled against Donald Trump. Chris laid it out. Dude had nothing. Yet he continued to say, oh, Chris, I'm losing respect for you.
Yeah.
And so I was so agitated with this call because Chris and I have literally sat here, and everyone else, most everyone else, have sat here and spoken about this and how angry we were originally when Trump, Pam Bondi, actually, and Kash Patel and so forth, when they said, well, there's no more files and Epstein actually did commit suicide. Chris Hand was one of the first guys to scream about that when he came on the air following me when I was on the air. So I don't know what this guy was trying to do, and if you guys, Chris and Mason and so forth, that call should be in the talk radio Hall of Fame as far as great ways to handle an asinine caller. Chris didn't feed his delusions. Chris tried to hold him accountable. Dude had nothing except bloviating. And the thing that I was especially proud of with Chris is that he let him speak. And the more that this guy Jay spoke, the more I realized dude had nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. So if they haven't isolated that call, they really should, because I personally thought that Chris did a great job handling that call. And then you were here, Sam.
Yeah.
And you say that just the phones exploded.
Yeah, there were 3 or 4 people in a row calling to either say something about Jay or to defend Chris, and telling me that one lady called just to tell me to tell Chris, we think the world of Chris. He's awesome. That guy is a word I can't say on the air. And I was like, yes, ma'am, I will get that to him. And I didn't have time. We were blowing back up to another phone call.
I'm going to tell you, I hired Chris, and I helped to guide him as a talk show host when I was a program director. I was very proud of Chris because I thought that he handled it well. He handled that call far better than I would, because I probably would have resorted to calling the guy an idiot and hanging up and not giving him the time of day. But Chris did the great move of letting the guy hang himself. And that, to me, that is exactly what the guy did. Okay, now that I've spent all this time talking about a call that maybe some of you haven't heard, I would encourage Chris and Mason to isolate that call and put it up as a podcast just to show how, I would say, useless people on the other side are when it comes to actually presenting evidence. The other thing that I thought was funny, I'm way late. The other thing that I thought was funny, though, was that dude was basically calling Chris a cult member when Chris was actually bringing evidence about, backing up what he was saying, his stance on Trump. And this dude had nothing but talking points. Nothing but talking points. So anyway, there you go. That's all I got, Joan. Should I move on? Well, I think I've said quite enough.